Hello, I'm here with Maria Bissell, director and writer of the film How to Deter a Robber, a story about small-town people fending off small-town crooks for relatively small amounts of worth. This is the first feature-length film directed by Maria. First off, what is the first movie you remember seeing in theaters?
As a kid? I mean, yeah,
Unless it was an
assuming.
adult. Yeah.
Uh, Gosh, that's a great question. I want to say Lion King. I'd have to ask my mom. I mean, I'm sure I saw other movies before then, but I think Lion King, and I think I cried a lot, and I think I would still cry a lot watching it again. Yeah, that was the first, I believe, that I can think
First
of.
one that sticks with you, at least.
Yeah. I mean,
Nice.
who would watch that and not have that stick with them? It's amazing.
You worked on plenty of crews as a producer or editor or camera operator and more. So how did you get started in the industry?
As an intern at a production company, I did that whole, running around different places and interning for about a year, not quite, doing lots of script coverage and reading lots of scripts. I was also a script reader for a online screenplay competition. So I read a lot of scripts then, which was useful later, knowing what a good script actually looked like. And then I worked for a producer for about a year as their assistant. And then I worked at a talent agency for 2 years. And that's when I understood that I wanted to get into TV and not just film, but I didn't want to exclusively do TV, but I knew I wanted to learn more about that. And that's when I started working for showrunners at Disney and then with them at Nickelodeon. And then I knew I wanted to make my own feature, and my husband, who's a DP and was the DP on this film, said, all right, if we're going to make this feature, you need to get on set more. And so I started being a set PA. It was almost weird because it looked like I was going backwards from being a showrunner's assistant to set PA. But I knew that it was going to be useful when I was actually on set as a director. And I also was a second AC on a couple of like Lifetime movies that my husband shot. And I think all those different experiences definitely helped for sure when I was on set making my own film, and just always making projects with my husband on the side and editing and working on figuring out ways to get it out there. Definitely, it's like it was all in preparation for this.
Of all those other non-directing and writing jobs, which would you say was your favorite part?
I actually really liked being a set PA on a multicam, The Thundermans for Nickelodeon. It was really fun to be just on a soundstage with this crew for months on end, and everyone kind of gets in a rhythm, and it's like you're a big family. And it was also fantastic because obviously every episode had a different director that I could then watch and talk to and learn from. And because I had been in the industry long enough, I wasn't like a shy set PA, and I was a more knowledgeable set PA than I guess the average person. So I was able to confidently ask a lot of questions, and it was very helpful when I was prepping for my own film. Things like if I had a question about a prop, I had people to call on and ask their direct advice on like, how do I make this? Where's the best place to source this from? It was actually a props person on a Nickelodeon show who pointed me to the best person to get the guns props from. So it's like there were all this resource that I could then utilize when it came time to do it myself.
Awesome. These are really great full answers, by the way. It's good
Great.
to remember all aspects of your career. I get
Sometimes
it.
I don't want to remember everything, but yeah.
Before How to Deter a Robber, you wrote and directed a short called Hobo Cop. What was the
Yeah.
inspiration behind that?
There was a TV show a few years ago called Ironside, I think it was. And
Sounds right.
it looked like when I saw the trailer, it was the most ridiculous, extreme example of a TV show where like this unruly, unhinged main guy who's just so genius but like can't get along with people around him, but has like all these weird special powers or whatever. And then I watched Ironside, and it's like he's in this wheelchair, and then convincing people that like, because he sees things from a different angle and point of view, that's how he could see evidence hiding under a couch, as though they weren't going to look under the couch. It was just like, how did like that make sense that they weren't going to look through the entire crime scene? And it was just so silly to me that all these people like house, and it just seemed like going an extreme direction of how much more ridiculous could you be as a detective. And I answered that question with like, well, if it's someone in deep undercover as a homeless person, actually just like being in that deep undercover, solving crimes only in a way that he could because he was hiding in the pile of garbage. But yeah, that's why I came up with that. And it's goofy. And if I'm being honest, seems a little insensitive at times that I made it, but it happened, and I edited it. And I think that was very helpful when making How to Deter a Robber, to be able to know what editing I needed, what I could do in the edit, and what I needed to get on set when I was there filming.
In your film, you set it in northern Wisconsin. Why did you pick this location?
Because it's a cabin that's been in my family for several generations. So I knew I had access to it for free. So I wrote it to the location. And I also have family members nearby with cabins. So I was able to utilize, so like my aunt's cabin is the Beckers, and my cousin's is Uncle Andy's house. So I was able to just run around town and utilize all those spaces and not have to worry about different locations breathing over my shoulder, freaking out the whole time, because it was family, and luckily they trusted me not to destroy their house in the process.
The lead of your film is played by Vanessa Morano, and before this I actually hadn't seen one of the roles where she was a lead. I saw her in smaller roles in various shows and things, and I thought she absolutely nailed it as the lead of your movie. So how did you choose her as your lead through the casting process?
She was a taped audition that was sent to me in, like, it felt like it was a matter of weeks before we were going to start filming. And I recognized her, but I also just loved her audition tape. And I thought that she really understood she's very good at playing someone who's a little bit bratty, but then you still is likable, and she's not just a spoiled brat who you love to hate. It's like more of the teenager who's being stubborn because they are having trouble finding their place in the world and understanding how they fit into things. And she really gets that and plays that really, really well. So I was very lucky to get her for it.
One of the other better parts was the chemistry between all of the cast. It really felt like they were a couple or family and related and all of that. So how did you promote the on-set chemistry for the actors to make it seem so real?
It's funny, they just did it themselves. I wish I could take more credit for that, but when we showed up, the dinner table sequence was one of the first things we filmed. It was something we filmed the first few days. And they showed up to set that day and like, oh, Maria, we were rehearsing this earlier. We all just got together and decided to run through the scene. And I didn't ask them to. I didn't feel like I could ask them to. And they just did it, so that when it came time to do that scene, which we knew was going to be a whole thing to film, because it was just, let's get the wide and then let's just march around the table, getting every single person's coverage, whether it was the medium shot and then getting changing a lens and then getting the next person, and just doing that scene so many 20 times. I'd have to look, it was a lot. And having them already have basically started rehearsing it and doing it beforehand, so they already had a rhythm for each other. And it was kind of incredible, and I feel so grateful that I had all these actors who came ready to work. They weren't there because, Wisconsin is amazing weather in January, and they weren't there because I was a big fancy director they wanted to work with. They just all wanted to work and do the job. And so when they showed up, they went above and beyond in a way that you can't expect or ask anyone to, but they just did it. And I'm so grateful and lucky that they did.
You can take some credit for it since you picked them
Yeah,
all, right? Yeah, you
I
picked good
did.
people for
Yeah,
it.
I picked them all.
And what do you have in store for the future now that you said you've been wanting to direct a movie for a while? I guess you wrote this several years ago. Um, are you planning on just doing more films now that you've done one under your belt?
Yeah, I mean, I have lots of ideas, and I think some of them are perfect for a feature-length movie, and some ideas I feel like are more long form that would require telling the story over multiple episodes and multiple seasons of a TV show. It depends on the idea, what's fitting for it to tell that specific story. So if I can be so lucky, would like to be able to continue to do flip-flop between the two and not have to necessarily pick, just depending on whatever is best for each story.
And you're not gonna, oh, are you gonna try to collect more different jobs about movies and shows? Like, are you gonna also be like the Hollywood accountant at some point, or maybe even the actress?
It's funny because in the time leading up to it, I was like, maybe I should be in every department, be able to say that I worked in every department. Because I feel like that's the number one complaint I would hear from different crew members as either just a showrunner assistant or as a set PA, different departments grumbling that like, oh, if only this director or this producer had to spend a day in my department, they would understand what it is that they just asked of me. And that really stuck with me, that like, if I knew how big of a change it was, if I was aware that asking to change a shirt is not a small thing, that it's like a whole situation on set that someone needed to go and figure out what didn't overlap with someone else in the scene, and everything's so coordinated and balanced in a way that what you might think is a small change in reality isn't, and having a better understanding of the consequences of your asks for each department, I think is really helpful. And I did really try when I was on set to talk to every department and ask them the question of like, what do you wish a director understood better about your job and your department? And they would tell me, and I feel like I could write a whole book about it as advice, but I feel very lucky that because I was just a set PA, they would just unload on me like, oh man, I wish that they knew better how big of a deal it is to change out a prop or whatnot, and how much time. I think that was the biggest thing, that things just take time and you just have to be patient, and you can't expect every request to be immediate. And being able to gather that information and perspective was super helpful. And I would like to continue to do more of it if there is an opportunity. I think it'd be really fun and it's interesting. But at the same time, I wouldn't necessarily have time to write and prep my next projects if I was off working special effects or something. So we'll see just how things pan out. But it has been fun.
Well, thank you again for stopping by, Maria, to interview here with me at Gorgon Reviews. Your film premiered yesterday at Fantastic Fest, and you can still watch it online if you go to the Fantastic Fest website. Thank you again, Maria, and I hope you're able to find that balance between TV shows and movies in the future.
Thank you so much.
Have a
Have
good
a
day.
good one.